Hello, my name is Goran Menkic, and sorry for little technical difficulties. Um, this is a little thingy that we're going to do today on Tilda podcast about Freenit Frontend. We're going to take the data and display it in the browser, but let me just return everything back to normal. Yeah, this is what we had last year. Oh, last week. Um, just six blog posts in a row, and we saw how to do the technical part of the design, how to export it into React code, how to uh, create a URL for that code for that page. And finally, this is what we're seeing, right? So, um, in the just a little bit in the code, this is what it looks like, right? We have six papers that each represents a blog post. So we can say, how about we say data for the blog post. For actually not the blog post. Let's do something simple. Something simple. And if I want to display the variable, I mean the value of this data, uh, for example, here beneath the straight from a hacker's kitchen, I'm gonna write it like this with the curly braces. And now when I save and I go to the browser, I can see something simple, right? It doesn't have margin, it doesn't have padding, but yeah, it's there. Now, what if I wanted to do something a little bit more complex? Our blog post is going to have a title and it's going to have content. Blah, 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 blah. Now, how are we going to display that? Uh, it's going to be a complex structure, and we need to display it somehow. So let's say that we want uh, that we want this content and title to be uh, displayed in H2 and P elements, and what we get is I didn't actually show you. Sorry. So this is what I changed. Now, when the data is a complex type, this is how we're using the individual. How to say that? This is an attribute of an object. So how do we use like individual variables in a complex one? This is object and this is its attribute, and this is how we use object attributes to render them in the browser in React. All right, so all of them are going to be basically the same, right? So let's just keep one. And this is how it looks like, right? So going back to the code, we can say that uh, this would be really great if we could put it inside some variable and just repeat it. So let's try to do that. If we can have constant, what is this, block post UI or blog UI, and we copy paste this and we say here blog UI, nothing should change, right? Everything is the same. We're just using it a little bit different in the code. So when we go back to the code, we say, okay, this is wonderful, but what it says here is a blog list, not a blog detail. So I'm gonna have an array here, actually, that is going to contain the data for every of the blog posts. So this data here dot title is not valid anymore, and we have to do something something different. Let's say blog list UI is we want data to map every single blog in this list to something that we are going to return instead of that blog post. What does that mean? This is a pretty complex. We want first this list displayed, and for now, this is ignored. Just ignore. This is what we're doing here. Let's say I have much simpler array. I have just two strings in it, and what I want to do is display it like this. Actually, map elements of this array onto the elements of this array using some function because you can obviously see there's a correlation between the two. But this is something, well, in this particular example, the string is something that um, React knows how to render, but this is not something that React knows how to render. Right, so the element of one array that is just the data is mapped onto the other array by mapping every single item in this array onto a very similar one that React knows how to render. Now we want, I just returned null here, but we're going to return something here, and that something is actually going to be this. We want every single blog post displayed as this, as a paper which has all these things in it. And we want this to be blog because that is this blog. And why it's important? Data, data.map. When data is an array, it has a method called map that is going to um, it's like going to execute this part of code for every element there is in the data. Now we have one, right? And this is just an example. So I want to remove it. And now what we have in a browser is just like we didn't do anything. But now if I do if I do okay, Monday. Okay. Let's say something like this. Now the browser looks like this. And we can see that we're populating um, the template with the data from the backend. And that's what uh, we're technically doing here. And uh, this is very similar to the actual data we're going to receive. So I'm just gonna uh, just gonna improve it a little. Blog list is going to be an object. It's gonna have data as a part, as an attribute. And now we're not going to map data, but we're going to map blog list dot data. Okay, now why we are doing this is because there's going to be two more attributes here. Uh, let's say like this, and total 16. I don't know, I'm just making up. Uh, what this tells us is that there's going to be a total of 16 blog posts in a database, and that we're on a page one. No, that we are on a page one. Uh, I think this is actually going to be like this. So the total number of pages is going to be 3, and total number of blog posts is going to be 16. What does the page mean? It's not an actual page. What it really is, it's like divided into sections. Let's say that you have 1,000 blog posts. You don't want them all displayed in a list. You want like 9 by 9 or 10 by 10, whatever, depending on the design, right? 9 by 9 is cool for us because we can use a grid that is 3 by 3. So uh, I mean, it's not universal when you're working on your mobile. You're gonna have you want a different display, so it has to be responsive and so on. But still, it's an okay number, even if it's not a desktop. If it's laptop, mobile, you don't lose anything. You can just render it differently, and we will cover that some other time. So for now, we're just going to imagine there's only front end and that's it. um, well, yeah, there's only front end. Uh, all right. Yeah, let's see what the browser still looks the same, right? But that's a lie because I'm sure there's an error here. It's this is probably too small to read, but it says each child in a list should have a unique key prop. Check the render method of blog list. All right, so let's go to the blog list and see what's going on there. The only list that we actually have is this map. I mean, mapped data. We're going to create a list. And what it tells us is that we should. Um, okay, no. Let me take a step back. In a database, every uh, blog post is going to have an ID. So, ID means it's going to be identification, and that means that it's unique. Because our error said that we need a unique key in a list. This is what it actually tells us. How about you give me a list, but so that every item in a list has a key, somewhat like an ID. And why is that? When you remove something or add something, so that React knows which element actually changed. Did you insert it between the two or whatever happened? So it helps it realize what is going on with the data it is about to render. Okay, let's see. Oh my god, the red thingies everywhere. Okay, let's apply to for web button expected boolean. What did I do? Oh, okay. This is like this. All right. Okay. What it just happened is that, well, I still need to work on the designer, and this is one of the uh, areas, uh, types of attributes, how they are rendered, how they are converted into React. So this doesn't need to be true, but just disabled. And then the error list is almost clean. And it's cool because it says 404 for the refresh. That's kind of strange for the refresh to say I didn't find a refreshment, because what that does is keeps us logged in. And it's strange because that should work. But, but, there is some path to be, well, coded basically to get there. Uh, what we want is kind of magical variable. Magical in a sense that, for example, if this title changes or there is a new blog post here I want you to notify this blog list, but notify it so that it calls its render one more time. Say, hey, there is a change in my structure, in my object. What do you think should be run on the screen right now? And that kind of uh, variable, that kind of storage is actually called store, right? I mean, no wonder it's called store. This is what we already have in store. This is a store provider, and it's if you know React, then you know that this is what a store provider does. If you don't, we are going to get there uh, eventually. But what it means to us is that if we inside render want to uh, see that this store is inside this props store. Uh, well, almost, but we're getting there. Oh no, okay. So let's go again. There is a store provider that registers individual little stores that is used in our application. And when you want to access that store in your render, it's this props store. But actually, not yet. And we can see that it rendered undefined. Is this actually? All right. Hello. So this is what it rendered undefined. I mean, the logged into the console is undefined. Why is that? Is because we need this blog list to be with the store, and that means that we need to import that with store from Freenit. Ah, god damn it! I'm not switching again. All right, so we need export default blog list was here, and now we are exporting it with a function with store, and this with store is exported from Freenit. And now when we peek into the browser, there's all kinds of things, right? There is auth history landing notification, but that's kind of familiar. Auth history landing notification and blah blah blah. So this is actually accessible to us through this prop store. All right, and this store is well, it's magical enough that it's too complex for it to be side by side something else in the lecture. We're going to leave it for later, but we're just going to access it right now, and just to give you uh, some preview how, for example, the uh, responsiveness is going to be achieved. Let's say that we want to know what resolution is, and Resolution is, well, something something. That means that we don't actually need resolution. The resolution is just a store which holds details, and it's inside a detail. And we look at that, we see that we have height and width, right? Let me try to wait 2448. Okay, let me try to remember that. Now I don't know if this is going to create anything. Okay, I made the browser smaller, and now I'm gonna make it bigger again. Right? You can see that well, my streaming software OBS is stretching the content, the picture of the browser, so you can actually see it stretching, not really uh, being smaller, but you can see that it jumped from initial value down then up, right? And it's a bit higher than it was. So yeah, now this is even smaller and smaller still, right? But you get the picture. When the resolution changes, this uh, this object changes and it re-renders. How do we know it re-renders? Because this single line is printed on a line 37. Actually, let's say it's true here. Let's see what it's gonna do. It's gonna take forever. Huh? Nah. Okay. So this is a line 37, right? And we have resolution details. Let's say we want only width. And now what we get in the browser is just a simple number. Uh, Now let me just stretch it radically, right? Like this, then this. You can see the number changing and probably the picture with it, right? And this is what happens with uh, variable once it's inside a store. It's magical in a sense that once I change, you as a React, are going to um, um, ask all components, hey, do you need to update because this data just updated? Do you need to display something differently because of that, or what? Uh, Technical term, what's going on under the hood is a virtual DOM. Then the difference is going to be calculated, and then only those are going to be sent to the browser to actually render them. Because if all changes would be sent to the browser, not just the differences, browser does it slower than the React does. The virtual DOM is called. It's the technical term. So, because the real DOM, which is in the browser, and that's how the browser stores inside its internal memory. DOM is how uh, browser stores all the elements, HTML elements, as a tree. Uh, so changing um, that structure, that object, is expensive, meaning that it usually is gonna take a while. So it's not so expensive to calculate the difference between what we're going to render, what we're about to render, and the currently active view, what's displayed. So If only one of these blog posts changed over uh, for whatever reason, let's say I clicked on it and now it has a shadow or something, uh, that means that only that um, blog post data is going to change. All the others are going to say, nah, I'm the same, I'm cool. It's going to return the same data, so the React is going to know that nothing changed, and that one blog post is going to be changed, and not whole post, only the data is changed, so it's smart enough. And this is going to be base for our uh, integration with the backend. I mean, it's always the data. Uh, Rarely you're as cautious about something as about data, right? All the security that we do is actually because of the data, not to, I don't know, protect the UI. It's to protect the data itself. So, this is how we are going to actually work with the backend, how we are going to integrate the UI with the data, raw data that backend only knows about. And this is how we're going to render it all. It's going to look like design, but not quite because of the data. Now, I'm going to uh, stop here. The next topic is a little bit complex. It's going to be a heart of our front end, actually. So it's going to take a while to grasp it. And it's uh, called store. We're going to add a new store, blog store, uh, to the existing list of stores. We're going to add it to provider, and we're going to use it just like we're using this. How it's called, the resolution, uh, only to log it to console. Right now it's really simple, but we could actually do something with it, render it on the screen if we want it. So it's going to be it's going to be interesting to see how to display what blog has to say. So stay tuned. Thank you for watching, and please consider being our patron. We are uh, Hackerspace from Novi Sad, and we are collecting money to um rent a new flat once the corona is over. So one thing we said is that our lectures are going to be free forever. No lecture is going to be paid for. Uh, so help us build better tutorials. And thank you for watching. Bye bye.